Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon to all over the world. যারা দেখছেন, যারা সহযোগিতা করছেন, আমাদের সিইও প্রতাপন্দর from New York and তাদের রহমান মান্না from বাংলাদেশ। আজকে শনিবার দিন আমি যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের ওয়াশিংটন থেকে সবাইকে শুভেচ্ছা জানাচ্ছি। গুড আফটারনুন। আমার নাম শারাফত হোসেন বাবু, আই এম হোস্টিং দ্য শো। আমাদের আজকের চমৎকার আয়োজন মিলেনিয়াম টিভি, ভেরি পপুলার শো আলাপন। আমরা প্রত্যেক সপ্তাহে বিভিন্ন ইন্টেলেকচুয়াল অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট, পলিটিশিয়ানস, কংগ্রেসম্যান, সিনেটর, কাউন্সিলর এবং স্টেট সিনেটর অনেককে নিয়ে আসি প্রোগ্রামে। আজকে আমাদের এবং কবি সাহিত্যিক আসেন। আজকের প্রোগ্রামে আমাদের রেসপেক্টেড গেস্ট মিস্টার লুৎফর আলী ফ্রম ইউকে, এন্ড উনি কাউন্সিলর ছিলেন। কাউন্সিলর নিয়ে কিভাবে কাজ করেন ওখানে, সেগুলো নিয়ে বিশদ আলোচনা করবেন আমাদের আজকের গেস্ট। আমাদের যিনি লুৎফর আলী সাহেব আছেন, ওনাকে আমাদের ডক্টর হাসনাত হোসেন, আমাদের ভয়েস ফর গ্লোবাল বাংলাদেশি যিনি প্রেসিডেন্ট, এন্ড আই এম এক্সিকিউটিভ ফ্রম ইউএসএ, উনি আমাকে অনেক অতিথি দেন, এন্ড হি ইজ এ প্রাউড গেস্ট ফ্রম হিজ সাইড অ্যাজ ওয়েল। সো আমরা অনুষ্ঠানের পক্ষ থেকে ডক্টর হাসনাত হোসেনকে অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি এবং ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। এবং আজকে ওনার ভাই বোধহয় ওনার অসুস্থ, উনি ওভারনাইট ফ্লাই করে গেছেন সিলেটে। আমরা দোয়া করছি ওনার ভাইয়ের আর্লি রিকভারির জন্য। সো লতিফুর রহমান, লুৎফর আলী সাহেব, যেহেতু লতিফুর রহমান একটা ছিল, আমি ইউকেতে বারবার হয়তো মিস্টেক হয়ে যেতে পারে। সো লুৎফর আলী সাহেব, ওয়েলকাম টু আওয়ার শো আলাপন। আমরা বিশদভাবে আলোচনা করবো আপনার সাথে, আপনার মন খুলে আলোচনা করবেন শিক্ষা, রাজনীতি ও সংস্কৃতি নিয়ে। এবং so much people want to hear from যারা ইলেক্টেড অফিসিয়াল থাকে তাদের থেকে। সো আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাকে আলাপন অনুষ্ঠানে আপনাকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি।
Assalamu alaikum Sharaf bhai, and thank you very much for having me on your program. Shabaki ami salam janaichi your viewers from across the world. Pratham, I think it's important to perhaps clarify that I'm not a councillor, nor am I a politician right now. I have historically advised politicians both in central government and local government. It's important kintu. So I'm a councillor.
Sorry for that. আমাদের আরেকজন পারভেজ আমাদের সাথে একটু yes, you are like non-executive director, business continuity institute policy advisor. I believe দেখেছি। Please go ahead.
So I think, but though I have worked and continue to work with politicians, I might be able to offer one or two thoughts and some insights into the current political situation in the United Kingdom, if it's helpful for viewers and if it's helpful for some of your thinking. You sort of very kindly described my background. I'm currently a non-executive director in the Business Continuity Institute. This institute is one that for businesses and organizations, it advises and supports and sets the standards and qualification standards for emergency planning, for resilience. If anything goes wrong in organizations, how can it carry on responding to disasters, whether they're man-made disasters or whether they're natural disasters. So this is what this institute does. I also sort of advise other organizations like the Chartered Institute for Personnel Development, a HR professional body. I run my own consultancy practice in supporting businesses and organizations, particularly in the public sector, on policy issues, on business development issues. So that's kind of what I do right now. Historically, I've worked in central government, local government, and the private sector as well in similar roles. So what would you like to know? What can I share? I feel yes, I feel I'm a bit of a fraud, given that you have had such significant people on your program. I don't think I particularly deserve to be on the program, but I'm very much honored in any case.
No, not at all, not at all. Policy advisor to সব করে Mr. Lutfur Ali. Policy advisor to America, US is a top priority. Lawyer, surgeons, and policy advisors. So আপনি কি লেভেলে পলিসি অ্যাডভাইস করেছেন তার আগে আমরা যাব, আপনি গভর্নমেন্ট লেভেলে কাজ করেছেন, আমরা একটু যাবো যে আপনার এডুকেশন, আপনি বাংলাদেশের কোথায় আপনার এডুকেশন শুরু হলো, আপনি কিভাবে লন্ডনে আপনার পলিসি অ্যাডভাইজিং শুরু করলেন, একটু ব্রিফ যদি আমাদেরকে বলেন প্লিজ। গো অ্যাহেড, খোলামেলা কথা বলতে
Yeah.
আমাদের our program name Alapon means we can talk.
It's a great name, and I hope we can have a conversation. So my history starts
Any
from
discussion we can start. You can speak English as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Ji. So my history starts from my father, who served in the British Army, British Indian Army, and following the Second World War, he settled in the United Kingdom in 1944-45. That's when he first arrived. Uh, I was born in 66, and I arrived in the UK in 1968. So I could be considered as second generation Bangladeshi in the United Kingdom.
Wow.
So I've been here more or less all my life, other than the initial 2 years I spent in Bangladesh. But my brothers have been here since the 60s, since the late 50s and 60s. We were one of the first Bangladeshi families to arrive in the United Kingdom in that respect. So my education is through one which I went through the English educational system. Did my O levels, then my A levels. I did my first degree through work. My work sponsored me to do the first degree. So that was quite fortunate of me. So, and then I did a master's equivalent, which is this chartered body of personnel development. And I did that. So it's a fellowship of the Chartered Institute for Personnel Development. Not particularly a revelatory or glamorous academic background to that of others, but nevertheless, it served me well, and I'm grateful for that. How did I find myself working in the world of policy? This was by perchance. There was a role in research in the Department of Environment. It was a very small role to look at the Brixton riots. I don't know whether any of your viewers might know, Britain went through a period of racial riots in the 80s. One of those riots, the most significant one that sort of perhaps may have triggered others, was in Brixton as a consequence of how police treated black people in the UK. And what the government wanted to know is what were the root causes of this riot. So I was appointed, I carried out the research. I had just completed my A levels, interestingly. So I was very lucky to have got the job. So my world of policy work starts from research. So if I describe how policy is made, policy is often based on evidence. So how do you gather the evidence? You have to carry out research, empirical research. You carry out longitudinal surveys, questionnaires, etc., and all of those things that contribute to providing the evidence base to be able to then advise. So my report was a reasonably good report. It provided what the root causes were. Local authorities took the report and then designed services and products and services, including education, community services, housing services, to better serve the black population of Brixton. But the report was also used to look at other areas with high ethnic minority populations where such potential conflicts might arise. Basically, when you look at what the root causes are, these can be as a consequence of people not having enough employment, jobs, people not having access to public services like social services. Educational standards were poor. As we're talking about the Bangladeshi community in the 80s, 70s and 80s was the poorest performing Bangladeshi community educationally speaking. And I'm sure you've heard that from Hasnat Bhai previously. But now, of course, the situation is quite different. This didn't happen just by itself. It happened because of core policies being directed.
Well, I saw here on your bio that you had several landmark judicial inquiry and task force, including the Jahid Mubarak inquiry, the Prime Minister's Prevent Task Force, and the International Ministerial Working Group on Illegal Workers. Can you brief on those? What area you specifically did, please?
Okay. So on the Zahid Mubarak inquiry, a young 19-year-old boy called Zahid Mubarak, who had been imprisoned.
He was 19 years old, right?
He was 19 years old. He had been imprisoned for stealing some razor blades from a shop. Okay, so consider this. a young 19-year-old boy is imprisoned for stealing razor blades in the shop. Okay, the police make a case against him, the criminal justice system acts against him, and he's imprisoned in a youth offenders prison for 90 days. Okay, on the day of his release, a white boy with a tattoo of a swastika on his forehead, using a wooden chair leg, beats him to death. Okay, so naturally his family and the public, the ethnic minority Pakistani population, the Muslim population, black population of Britain, want to know, why did that happen? Why was a known racist put in the same cell as Zahid, and why was he killed? That was the first thing. The second thing was, why was someone jailed for only stealing razor blades? Do you understand? So I'm sure you have
it's a similar thing happening in USA also. Yes,
exactly. Exactly. I mean, black people are shot all the time. They're for simple traffic violations or simply not their light working. They're stopped on the roads, and the police shoot them to death. This is a common occurrence. So that's this is the pattern, isn't there? The Brixton riots was as a consequence of police brutality. Zahid Mubarak, was imprisoned. Before Zahid Mubarak, there was another inquiry called the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. Sorry.
Before Zahid Mubarak, there was another inquiry called the Stephen Lawrence inquiry. Go ahead.
There is a bit of an echo. I hope the echo is gone now. I was just making the point that before the Zahid Mubarak inquiry, there was another inquiry called the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, where there's a huge amount of police cover-up in the way that the investigation had been carried out in not catching the killers of Stephen Lawrence. Stephen Lawrence's inquiry led to sort of significant legislative changes in the UK. But the Zahid Mubarak inquiry one was where the entire judicial system had failed him. The prison system had failed him in terms of protecting him as a young offender, where a known racist had been put in the same cell. Whether it was deliberate or not, it was difficult to establish. However, the findings of the inquiry had then contributed to improving the prison services and in the way that prisoners are treated. It'll be an interesting statistic for your viewers to sort of understand that there is a disproportionate number of Muslim prisoners in the UK prison system, in the same way that you have a disproportionate number of black prisoners in the US prison system. Okay, so there is obviously a clear indication of racist, prejudicial ways in which the police discharge their responsibilities in how they deal with black and ethnic minority people.
Mr. Ali, lots of people are making comment. Your statement তারা দেখছেন all over the world থেকে অনেক নাম, আমি নামগুলো পড়তে গেলে শেষ হবে না। সো যারা কমেন্ট করছেন আমাদের প্রোগ্রামে লাইভ আলাপন অনুষ্ঠান মিলেনিয়াম টিভির, আপনাদের সকলকে কংগ্রেচুলেশন এবং সকলকে অভিনন্দন এবং ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি আমাদের টেলিভিশনের পক্ষ থেকে এবং লতিফুর আলীর মিস্টার লতিফুর আলীর পক্ষ থেকে আপনাদেরকে অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি আপনারা যে দেখছেন এবং কমেন্ট করছেন। থ্যাংক ইউ। গো হেড প্লিজ মিস্টার লতিফুর আলী, গো হেড।
I was just making the point that one of the significant things that still continues to play out the world over, particularly in the so-called Western developed countries, is the way in which black and ethnic minority people are continuing to experience discrimination at every level of society, whether it's in relation to education, whether it's in relation to the judiciary, the criminal justice system, whether it's access to education. But despite that, many black and ethnic minority communities are progressing very, very well. Educationally, for instance, here in the United Kingdom, Bangladeshis are the third best performing people in 2024. So in 2021, the census statistics have shown that Chinese are the best performing, followed by the Indian community, then followed by the Bangladeshi community. So contrast this against 85, where Bangladeshis were at the bottom of the educational achievement pool. Now, 25 years or so later, 30 years or so later, there's a significant improvement in the way that Bangladeshis have achieved. That doesn't mean they still don't experience racism and discrimination in accessing employment and education. It's despite that they've overcome all of those challenges.
আমরা একটু মিস্টার আলী একটু ডিফারেন্ট ভাবে যাই। আপনার লন্ডনে আপনি যেখানে থাকেন বা যে এলাকায় থাকছেন সেখানে কারেন্ট পলিটিক্যাল সিচুয়েশন কি? আপনাদের মধ্যে জুলাই 4th ইলেকশন হচ্ছে, রাইট? জুলাই 4th ইজ ইউনাইটেড স্টেটস অফ আমেরিকার বার্থডে। আমরা আমাদের এখানে সেলিব্রেট করি 4th of July, যে বিশাল আয়োজনে হলিডে থাকে গভর্নমেন্ট, এন্ড ইটস লাইক হিউজ ফেস্টিভ্যাল বলতে পারেন যে 4th of July ফর ইউনাইটেড স্টেটস অফ আমেরিকা। What's going on in the UK? আপনারা election date 4th of July, so they don't follow. This is like brother sister UK and USA. So why election date become 4th of July?
Well, you could say we're kind of celebrating, freedom, and you
You
could
want to
say
celebrate by
yeah,
doing election?
by doing an election. So, I mean, I think for political observers of your viewers that are out there will know that Britain has been, for the last 3 election periods, at least for the last 15 years, it's been governed by the Conservative Party, Tories. They're comparable to the Republicans in the United States. So they've been in power for the last 15 years. And Rishi Sunak, who is the current Prime Minister of Britain, wasn't elected. He was just merely selected as a consequence of the way in which selected. So he's found himself in a beleaguered situation. Basically, he's not been particularly seen.
Is he running
by,
again, or is he going to be elected again, or what is the popularity for Rishi Sunak now?
The popularity is very, very poor, and I think
very,
all the
very
political
poor, right?
very, very, very poor. And I think he's decided 4th of July because right now there's a slight spike in economic improvement in the economy of Britain. So he thinks this is a good time, the best time for him to go for an election. It's highly unlikely that this is going to impact on the outcome of the elections. Some 90 or so of his.
Mr. Ali, sorry to interrupt you. If he unpopular or very low rating for his popularity, who is you think coming to the power next election going to be held soon?
So all the political polls suggest that it's likely to be the Labour Party, with the gentleman who is leading the Labour Party is currently called Keir Starmer. He used to be the former Crown Prosecutor some 10-15 years ago. So it's very likely, that's all the political polls are suggesting, that it's very, very likely that Labour will win, and they will win by a very large margin. That's because also there are some 70 to 90 Conservative
so
MPs.
Mr. Ali, we'll come back again. We will have a small break. So ad break. So আমরা দর্শক, আমরা সারা বিশ্ব থেকে যারা দেখছেন, আমরা একটা ছোট্ট বিজ্ঞাপন বিরতিতে যাচ্ছি। বিজ্ঞাপন বিরতি থেকে এসে আমরা কে পপুলার কে আনপপুলার ইন ইউকে পলিটিক্স এবং আমরা ইউএস এর পলিটিক্সে যাব। ততক্ষণ পর্যন্ত আমাদের সাথে থাকুন। একটি অ্যাড বিরতিতে যাচ্ছি। থ্যাংক ইউ।
মা, আমি ড্রাইভে আছি, পরে কল করছি।
ব্যস্ততা, একাকিত্ব।
মা, কেমন আছো মা?
ভালো।
ওষুধ খেয়েছো?
খেয়েছি, দুপুরে ওইটা আর রাতে ওই দুটো।
মা কি ভুলভাবে ওষুধ খাচ্ছে?
কর্তব্য, গোল্ডেন এজ হোম কেয়ার। দায়িত্ব, আপনার প্রিয়জনকে ভালো রাখা আমাদের দায়িত্ব। গোল্ডেন এজ হোম কেয়ার, আপনার সাথে প্রিয়জনের পাশে।
দর্শকবৃন্দ, আমরা আবার ফিরে এসেছি আমাদের আলাপন অনুষ্ঠানে। আমরা চমৎকার আলোচনা করছিলাম লতিফুর আলী ফ্রম ইউকে। উনি অ্যাডভাইস করেন বিভিন্ন সেক্টরে পলিসি মেকিং এ, এবং স্পেশালি উনি যেটা করেন বলেন ইলিগাল ওয়ার্কারদের নিয়ে, যে উনি ইন্টারন্যাশনাল মেইনস্ট্রিমে যে ইলিগাল ওয়ার্কারদের যে উনি অ্যাডভাইস করছেন সেগুলো নিয়ে কথা বলছিলেন। আমরা এখন চলে গেছি ওনার সাথে UK politics. Yes. So go ahead, Mr. Ali. What Rishi Sunak and other? Who is the candidate other side?
I was describing that is a candidate from the Labour Party. Well, the Labour Party, the United Kingdom electoral system works on the basis of parties being elected, not presidents being elected. This is the difference between the presidential system.
It's a parliamentary government like Bangladesh. Yes, that's true.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct. So parties are
Labour
elected.
Labour Party is leading now.
That's correct. In the polls, the Labour Party
okay.
are leading quite by a significant margin, and it's very likely all the polls are suggesting that the Labour Party will win.
How
And
the UK poll works? It's like USA or it's like Bangladesh?
I mean, the way that people vote are very, very similar. There's, you know, the election days on the 4th of July, people will vote. Votes will get counted overnight. Some results will come in sooner than others. For some local authority
No, আমি
areas, the
আমি
result-
বলছিলাম লতফর আলী সাহেব যে ফুল যেটা দিচ্ছে ইউকে তে লন্ডনে, এই ফুল কি কারেক্ট হয় নাকি ওখানেও ফাজি ম্যাথ হয়, লাইক আমাদের এখানেও কিছু হয়েছে এবং বাংলাদেশ বা সারা বিশ্বে হয়, ওটা হয়
no,
নাকি কারেক্ট থাকে?
no, no. United Kingdom are very, very little questioning. The
Good.
Electoral Commission
স্বচ্ছ
very, very
ইলেকশন হয়।
tightly controls, and you know, there is significant police presence in each of the polling stations. So the likelihood of any vote rigging is very, very limited. There's always, you know, very, very small scale, you know, abuse of the system, but that's
Very good to
increasing
hear that. The vote rigging is so low. Okay.
very, very low. I mean, you know, you have people, for example, we have a system of uh,
না, আপনি
voting.
আমাদের আমেরিকা সম্বন্ধে আপনারা জানেন, you know about the United States of America, you see CNN, Fox all the time. এখানেও ভোট রিগিং ছিল না। মানুষ সারা বিশ্ব থেকে যুক্তরাষ্ট্র ডেমোক্রেটিককে ফলো করে, বাট হোয়াট হ্যাপেন ইন জানুয়ারি 6? এইখানেও তো ট্রাম্প ইলেকশন নিয়ে বাইডেনের সাথে কত রকম কোশ্চেন হচ্ছে যে ইলেকশন রিগিং হয়েছে, এটা হয়েছে, এখন পর্যন্ত সে কনসিড করে নাই, মানতে রাজি না, রি-ইলেকশন করছেন আবার। কেওয়াস তার পিছনে আছে, কোর্টে দৌড়াচ্ছেন, বাইডেনের বয়স অনেক বেশি হয়ে গেছে অনেকে বলছে। রিগিং কিন্তু এখানেও চলছে বিভিন্ন স্টেটে। মানে আই রান ফর স্টেট সিনেট, আমার ইলেকশনও রিগিং হয়েছে। সো রিগিংটা আমি অন দ্য রেকর্ড বলতে পারি, আমার ইলেকশনও চিট করে নিয়ে গেছে, ইটস ইন কোর্ট নাও। আমি স্টেট সিনেটে রান করেছি ভার্জিনিয়া 33rd ডিস্ট্রিক্টে, এখানেও রিগিং হয়েছে। আই থট আই এম উইনিং এন্ড আই ওয়ান, বাট রেজাল্ট ফ্লিপড।
No, this is the likelihood of
সাপ বেজি সব জায়গায় আসে বিশ্বে, সো স্নেক ইজ এভরিওয়্যার।
no, but I can say quite confidently because I've been responsible for electoral systems myself. So I've been a civil servant, you see, and I've worked in local authorities where I've been the sort of returning officer or being responsible for the voting system itself and the structure. And I can assure you, the rigging of the type that you're describing in the US or other places across the world does not take place here in the UK. There is significant monitoring, the constant monitoring that takes
Mr.
place.
লতিফর আলী, আমি অনেকবার ইন্টারাপ্ট করছি, আমি ক্ষমা চেয়ে নিচ্ছি এর জন্য, যে আপনার কথাগুলো মানুষ জানতে চায় যে ঋষি সোনাক কি পপুলার না বললেন, কিন্তু উনি কি অ্যাকমপ্লিশ করেছে এই অল্প সময়ে কিছু কাজ, বা যারা জনগণ যাচ্ছে, did he fulfill some of the bullet points মানুষ যেটা চাচ্ছে or not?
The only thing that Rishi Sunak has done is the Rwanda policy. He's introduced that in terms of his parties. I mean, as a relatively impartial observer of politics in the UK, the only thing that I can say that is, as far as his party is concerned, that he's done is introduce the draconian measures of, you know, taking immigrants to control.
What about the job growth?
Jobs growth is very, very limited. We have, you know, quite high unemployment rates. Inflation is very, very high, although it's just come down slightly very, very recently.
The climate, job growth, and then international, like foreigners, like immigrants. That he's immigrant, even though he born there, I guess. But immigrants, you know, আপনি কাজ করছেন, illegal immigrants, you know, what do you feel? He did something for illegal people or no?
So
or
you see,
immigrant outside from UK যারা আসছে, তাদের জন্য ঋষি সোনাক কি করেছেন?
I think if you will give me a couple of minutes to sort of talk about the idea of how people become successful and what their backgrounds are, I want to talk to and share with you a thought around power and privilege. Okay, so Rishi Sunak comes from a powerful and privileged background, as do a number of his cabinet members. For instance, Suella Braverman, who used to be the Home Secretary. Prior to her, it was Priti Patel. When black and ethnic minority people get into senior positions, you need to look at what their background is. Okay, if their background is one that has come from a privileged position where they've already been affluent, they don't understand the trials and tribulations and problems that ordinary people experience. Okay, even if they have some empathy towards that, they find it very, very difficult to do something about it. This classic case is here where Rishi Sunak is from an ethnic minority background. Both of his parents are Indian. He is Indian. He celebrates his Hindu heritage and origins. But if you ask whether he's done anything for people from underprivileged backgrounds, people who experience discrimination, it'll be very little. On the contrary, some of his measures, like the immigration measures, is very draconian. Okay, even white people, even liberal white people, are very, very impressed at how racist or potentially racist they could be. Okay, so this is the construct, and I think it's very, very important to understand it applies to Bangladeshis as well. Bangladeshis that come from privileged and affluent backgrounds, okay, who find themselves in positions of power and responsibility, or even people who come from poorer backgrounds and get into positions of
Since
power.
you're talking about race or segregation, so the thing is, white, black, and immigrant and mixed community, Hispanic or others, what popularity, like white need to be on your side to accomplish the goal, right? In UK, like USA, 77+% whites are here. What
You
about
see,
UK?
I think what's really important is whether you're black or white or whatever your race or whatever your ethnic heritage and origin is, you have to be caring about issues of fairness, just and social justice and equality. You have to care about that in public policy, in public roles of responsibility. When you're a politician or even if you're a senior civil servant, you have to be responsible for ensuring that people are treated with fairness and dignity. Okay, whatever you're responsible for, whatever your area of responsibility. If what you do is one that only merely seeks to serve your own personal purposes or your privileged background, okay, and we're seeing that being played out in Bangladesh, in the US, with Donald Trump, with the current incumbent of your president, whatever is, um, they're all from a privileged background. They care very little.
Our incumbent president is Joe Biden. Yes.
Joe Biden. See, I forget his name because that's how little importance
You
we
don't know his
attach to.
name?
I know his name.
You're a
I just
policy
forgot it.
advisor. You should know United States of America president.
Yeah, my mind momentarily went blank in terms of his name. So, but you see, if you look at their backgrounds, they all come from very privileged backgrounds. So they're highly unlikely to be able to sort of look at the needs and problems and issues that ordinary people face in the United States or in the UK. And it's the same problem. It's not about black or white. It doesn't matter who you are. If your background prevents you from actually delivering, there's a really interesting story in the US, and I need to share this with you. In 1889, there was a black slave who was freed by his slave master. Okay, I think it was I can't remember his name now, but he was freed and he was given a little plot of land. This black slave did so well using his little plot of land, okay, that he became very, very rich. And when he became rich, he bought other slaves. He bought black slaves. This is in North Carolina. You can look it up. It's a fact. Okay. And he became the most successful black slave breeder. So he would get one black male slave, one black female slave. He'll breed them. And he was the most successful black slave breeder. His tactics of treating the black slaves were so heinous that white slave traders would come to him and ask him for advice. Now, think about this for a minute. This is a black person, black slave, who was freed, who is now perpetuating the same kind of treatment to his own people, okay? Because that's a success construct that white people have set up for him. This is taking place now, this day, in the modern era as well. This is the same thing as what Rishi Sunak is doing, Suella Braverman is doing, other successful black people are doing in the US, okay? They're following the same success construct that the white people have laid out for them, okay? So it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're white or black. If you don't care for people, if you don't care to provide services that are fair and equitable and accessible, so that it raises people from out of their poverty to be able to sort of enjoy life with dignity.
Since you're on this subject, Mr. Ali, you are advising policy for judiciary area also in UK. So, এই যে race, যে immigrant হলে, Bangladeshi হলে, Indian, Pakistani হলে, বা Middle Eastern হলে, white, black, how judiciary works there is শুধু বাংলাদেশি হলে তাদের সাজা হয়ে যাচ্ছে বা সাদা হলে ছেড়ে দিচ্ছে, ওরকম কিছু হচ্ছে কিনা, বা can you talk about that a little bit?
So the judicial system is independent, or meant to be independent, in the United Kingdom. So part of this sort of construct of what the constitutional setting in the UK is. So in the UK, we don't have a formal written constitution. Our constitution is an unwritten one, but there are certain levers of constitutional arrangements, which one of those levers is the judiciary, and it's an independent entity from the government. Okay, but the judiciary is part of
But
society.
independent entity, I know, but how it
So I'm just
acts.
describing. So listen to this. So the judiciary is part of the society. Yeah, judiciary is composed of people from society. People from society. People get, if you are successful, we know that white people from powerful, privileged backgrounds become successful. They become the judges. They become, we've got two judges. We've got two Bangladeshi judges at the moment, but they're not senior judges. They're sort of mid-tier, lower
Two
level,
judges
sort of
from
lower
Bangladesh.
judges. Two judges from
And
Bangladeshi
they're
origin,
senior judges.
not from
Okay, how they
Bangladesh.
act?
Well, I think, they're as I said, they're mid-level, mid-tier judges. I think I've seen some decisions that they've
Do
made.
you have their name? বাংলাদেশি দুজন জজের নাম বলবেন?
একজন হলো আখলাকুর রহমান,
আকলাকুর রহমান, and আরেকজন?
Rahman, and the other one is Khan something Khan. She's a female
So
judge.
owners, they're
female.
from Bangladesh. Do you know which district?
I don't know which districts they're from.
Maybe from Sylhet.
Maybe. Well, no, I know they're both from Sylhet.
Oh, both from Sylhet. Where are you from? You're from Sylhet too?
I'm sure. Well, my origins are from Sylhet. I see. Here's another.
London তো আপনি সিলেট ছাড়া হবে না।
No.
সিলেট তো সিলেট।
Here's another interesting thing. So when you speak to people like me, because I think I consider my heritage to be of Bangladeshi origin, and I'm very proud of that. Okay.
Thank you.
But in terms of my construct of being and thinking, I've spent the last 40-50 years, probably longer now, in the UK. So
yourself, and I know so many others, but আমাদের মাহিদুর রহমান সাহেব আছেন, আমাদের বিএনপি চেয়ারপারসন অ্যাডভাইজার, উনিও সিলেট। আপনাকে বলছি যে আমাদের ডাক্তার হাসনাত হোসেন সিলেট, ইউ আর সিলেট, আমাদের অনেক ফ্যামিলি মেম্বাররা সিলেট। এখন আপনাকে বলছি যে দুইজন জজ সিলেটের, তাদের অ্যাকশন গুলা কেমন? ইটস লাইক ব্রিটিশ অর ইটস লাইক এশিয়ান ওয়েতে ভার্ডিক্ট গুলা দিচ্ছেন?
So their actions have to be judged on the quality of their judgments. বুঝতে পারছেন আমি কি?
So are both of them are popular now by doing those practice, or
No. So judges do not enter into
আমাদের টেলিভিশন we are proud of both of them, yes.
Sharafat bhai শুনেন, এই দেশে, in the United Kingdom, judges are not selected by politicians. Okay, they're selected by their peers. Okay, so this is a big difference. So they don't enter into a popularity contest. So the only way that judges are assessed in terms of their performance is by fellow lawyers and fellow judges. So there's a hierarchy
of judges. Those two judges are Supreme Court judges or just High Court judges?
No, they're High Court judges or lower court judges below High Court. They haven't yet reached the levels of Supreme Court and the law lords. But you asked a question as to how good they are. Their effectiveness has to be judged by the quality of their judgments. I know for one that Akhlakur makes very good judgments. He's made a decent judgment in relation to a very important landmark case in the United Kingdom around trans inclusion issues. Trans people, people who change their gender from being man or woman and woman to man. So he was one of the judges to make one of those landmark decisions in the Maya Fostater case. So as from that, and I think the Judge Khan is involved in immigration. She's an immigration judge. Okay, so I'm sure they'll be. When we look at judges, we look at how well they're applying the law in the judgments and decisions that they make. Other than that, there is no popularity contest. They don't get elected, so therefore they don't have to display popularity perceptions to the public. So it was just, I think we've gone off in a bit of a tangent in terms of looking at the core question of where the political direction of travel is for the United Kingdom. This current government has been highly unpopular amongst the public in a number of areas, economically, in terms of its immigration policies, in terms of its inability to actually tackle the NHS problems, where people are having greater and greater waiting time. So in the United Kingdom, we have the NHS, which every person has free access to healthcare. Okay, every person has that, but it's having problems in terms of the longer and longer waiting time periods for people that have to access the NHS. So along a whole range of public policy issues and public service issues, this government has seemed to have failed the public of the United Kingdom. And the public of the United Kingdom are very much ready for a new government to come in place to see if they can do any better. We don't know whether they can.
লুৎফর আলী, খুব চমৎকার কথা বলছি আমরা আপনার সাথে আমাদের অনুষ্ঠানে। আপনাকে আবারও অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি। টকিং ভেরি গুড পলিসি ইস্যু গুলো এবং আপনি আউটলাইন গুলো করছেন। ইউ হ্যাভ এ নলেজ অ্যাবাউট পলিটিক্স। হোয়াই ডোন্ট ইউ ডু পলিটিক্স দেয়ার অ্যাজ ওয়েল? সো আমি একটা ছোট্ট বিরতিতে যাব, দর্শকরা আমরা একটা বিরতিতে যাচ্ছি। এসে আমরা ডক্টর লুৎফর আলীর সাথে কালচার নিয়ে একটু কথা বলবো। হোয়াট কালচার দে বিলং ইন ইউকে, বাংলাদেশিরা কিভাবে চলছে, প্রত্যেক অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা বলি। সো আমাদের সাথে থাকুন, আমরা একটা ছোট্ট বিজ্ঞাপন বিরতিতে যাচ্ছি, ফিরে আপনাদের সাথে আবারও আলোচনা মেতে উঠবো।
মা, আমি ড্রাইভে আছি, পরে কল করছি।
ব্যস্ততা, একাকিত্ব।
মা, কেমন আছো মা?
ভালো।
ওষুধ খেয়েছো?
খেয়েছি, দুপুরে ওইটা আর রাতে ওই দুটো।
মা কি ভুলভাবে ওষুধ খাচ্ছে? কর্তব্য, গোল্ডেন এজ হোম কেয়ার। দায়িত্ব, আপনার প্রিয়জনকে ভালো রাখা আমাদের দায়িত্ব। গোল্ডেন এজ হোম কেয়ার, আপনার সাথে প্রিয়জনের পাশে।
আমরা আবারও ফিরে আসছি। দর্শক বিন্দু সারা পৃথিবী থেকে যারা দেখছেন, বাংলাদেশ, ইউকে, ইউনাইটেড স্টেটস অফ আমেরিকা, মিডল ইস্ট, ইউ ক্যান নেম এনিওয়্যার, আমাদের প্রচন্ড, আমরা অনেকগুলা ডিভাইসে আমাদের টেলিভিশন টেলিকাস্ট হয়ে থাকে লাইভ। মিস্টার লুৎফর আলী, এগুলা রুকু, জাদু, এনি নেম এনি ডিভাইস ইজ ওয়াচিং লাইভ নাও। সো আমি দর্শকদের কাছে আপনাকে একটু ডিফারেন্ট ভাবে নিয়ে আসতে চাই, এবং দর্শক আমাদের এবং আপনি সহ প্রচন্ড ইদানিং ডক্টর হাসনাত সাহেবের যতই গেস্ট আসে এখন দেখছি লন্ডন থেকে আমাদের প্রচন্ড কমেন্ট আসতে থাকে। সো দর্শক আপনারা যারা কমেন্ট দিচ্ছেন, যারা দেখছেন, রিয়েলি থ্যাংক ইউ ফর ইউর নাইস কমেন্টস। তো আমি নেক্সট এপিসোড আমরা উইদিন 15 মিনিট শেষ করব। আমরা 1 ঘন্টা প্রোগ্রাম করে থাকি, আজকে একটু ছোট করে করছি। সো নেক্সট 10-15 মিনিটস উইল টক অ্যাবাউট কনক্লুশন থাকবেই, তার মাঝে আপনি কালচার নিয়ে যদি কিছু বলতে চান, যে আপনার লন্ডনের কালচারাল অ্যাফিলিয়েশনটা কিভাবে চলে, আপনাদের আপনি যেখানে থাকেন সেখানের সাথে কানেক্টিভিটি, বাংলাদেশিদের, আমেরিকান বা ব্রিটিশদের সাথে, হাউ ইউ ডু দিস কালচারাল থিং ওভার দেয়ার, প্লিজ।
Okay, so I mean,
কালচার আপনার অনেক কিছু দেয়, কিভাবে বাজার করেন, কিভাবে খান, কিভাবে অনুষ্ঠান হয়, সব কালচারে পড়ে।
Let's start from Bangladeshi food culture, which has permeated. Yes, Bangladeshi food culture data, it goes under the name of Indian food. So Indian restaurants, invariably, I think when it's all started from sort of the late 18th century, when the first Bengalis began to come here, that was the first thing that they entered into, which was sort of to create Bengali restaurants. Well, they weren't Bengali restaurants; they were called Indian restaurants because it was part of the subcontinent of India. But I think a significant number of Bangladeshis that came in the sort of 70s and 80s went into the Bengali setting up this Indian
association আছে, বিরাট বিশাল আকারে
catering association আছে. So, and it's very, very well organized, and I think it's provided significant sort of economic boost for the Bangladeshis. The other way in which that Bangladeshis were economically occupied were in the, particularly in the north of the UK, were in the cotton mills. The cotton mills were the making of fabric and clothing. So that was another area. Also in the East End of London, where there was a significant Bangladeshi population and still is, there were also sort of tailoring houses where people made, they were called where people worked in very, very poor conditions, making clothes and whatnot. So this was the early experience of Bangladeshis in the UK. But the food culture has now been elevated somewhat. It's still quite strong. Bangladeshis are increasingly eating out themselves. So you see in the East End of London or other places, Bangladeshis go out and eat a lot in their own restaurants. Now, 15, 20 years back, no one could have predicted this. So one of the indicators is that there's a lot of disposable income within Bangladeshi families where people can go out and eat. In terms of cultural development, in terms of art and music, that's kind of been stymied somewhat in terms of, in the 80s and 90s, there was a greater level of Bangladeshi cultural outputs. There was melas. The melas have now almost disappeared. They don't happen as much. People wear at home mainly their own cultural garb, like saris and lungis and kurtas and stuff like that. But in normal societal sort of clothing, this isn't apparent. But Bangladeshi music, in terms of what people listen to, that's very limited as well. Mostly people listen to that in their own private spaces, but it's not apparent in the public sphere. One of the things that is slightly sort of rubs against this so-called Bangladeshi culture is the Islamic Muslim culture. And the two things sometimes rub against each other and may have sort of counteracted it, sort of, working against expression of Bangladeshi music, Bangladeshi art, and so on. I think that's important. Core to this is Bengali language. And you can see, look, I'm finding it difficult to sort of fluently speak Bengali in my mother tongue. I understand it. And if I'm pushed to speaking Bengali, I can speak it. But I feel comfortable because I dream and think in English. So this is much more of a natural way.
Bangladeshi culture, do you involve with political culture over there? Awami League, BNP, Jamaat, Jatiya Party. Are you involved, or what kind of cultural politics they are doing over there? Can you talk something about politics?
So Bangladeshi politics is in the UK is very, very strong and live, particularly in the first and second generation Bangladeshis, or Bangladeshi people that have newly come to the UK, is very strong amongst them. But second, third generation, Awami League politics or BNP politics is not that strong. Okay, so I think after the next generation, that's going to be.
You said Bangladeshi politics is strong, but not the Awami League and BNP. What politics is stronger than them?
With them. No. So Bangladesh is naturally politically orientated. So those that are from the second and third generation are investing their political energy in UK politics and less so in Bangladeshi politics. First and some second generation people are working with Bangladeshi National Party and Awami League, okay, because they still feel they can influence what happens there. Now, of course, the BNP are in a very weakened position at the moment, as you're probably very well aware.
It's very weakened position now, right?
Of course it is. There's, why
BNP is very weakened? Because their acting president is there. Why this is weakened? Their
acting president lives about half a mile from where I live. Okay, so this is.
Did you ever meet him?
Sheikh Khalida's son lives about half a mile away from where I live. Now, people from the Bangladeshi political hierarchy, like Muhidur Rahman Bhai and others, come and visit him regularly. They come and try to advise him, to try to guide him, to sort of try and lead an effective opposition.
Okay, let's come back to that point. That even the acting president, Tareq Rahman, lives there. Why party is weak there? They are weak in Bangladesh for brutality. So many other things I can say, but there's no space they're giving them. But they're big party. So Awami League and BNP both are big party, half and half. But they are ruling now for 20 years. It's okay. I know, everybody know, without vote they're in there. But how London, like, even though he's living there, the acting vice chair, why they're weakened over there? Do you blame anybody? All over the world blaming BNP leadership question. Is there doing anything wrong over there in London? The same people like Mr. Malik, Mr. Kaisar is sitting for their, I think they own the party. Party need democracy. They need to be changed to a dynamic people as well. Do you believe it?
Well, I think you've got to sort of if the opposition is ineffective, whether it's in the UK. Now, how the extent to which the UK politicians can influence what happens in Bangladesh is going to be always very, very limited. However, if the president of the opposition is sitting here in the UK, the first question is, it's highly unlikely they're going to be able to influence effective opposition in Bangladesh because they're not physically there. You can't do it remotely, right? That's the number one issue. Now, second question
Since Latifur Ali, you're a policy maker. Do you think there are some policymaker with him, like acting president of BNP Tarek Rahman next to him? I don't see any policymakers sitting there like Humayun. Mr. Humayun, I think that a lot of people are talking about take his name off from the policy making because it's been a long time they're doing fuzzy math. Do you think the good policymakers are with him? We don't see any ministerial level, cabinet level, or member of parliament level hanging around with or meeting with Tarek Rahman. Why?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a very, very good question, and that's probably. I mean, it's probably it comes back to your question about
probably they're meeting or hiding. But do you know any message how they're dealing?
No. So before I can answer a question, you're asking another question.
I'm sorry. So go ahead, please. It's your time.
So let me answer the question whether you think the BNP opposition leadership is effective or not. Okay, if they were effective, okay, Bangladesh would be in a slightly better position in terms of checks and balances to what the current administration is doing. Because their leadership is not effective, we are in the situation of almost a one-party leading. I'm not questioning what's wrong and what's right. We're talking about the effectiveness of opposition. You always need a good, effective opposition to have good democracy in countries. If you don't have any opposition or weakened opposition, the party in power is always prone to exploit and abuse the power.
A subject I can see their comments. Now we're talking about Bangladesh politics. They start commenting. So go ahead. I like those. Please, we have 5 more minutes to finish with conclusion. You can talk any side you want.
One of the problems is it comes back to your question of culture. Culturally, Bangladeshis do not know how to have a succession plan of new leadership coming in. So the current leadership within the BNP and potentially also within Army League as well and other parties is that there's no fresh thinking, there's no fresh policy making, because it's the same old people doing the same old thing, okay? And it's always about personal vested self-interest. And unless you let go of your personal self-interest and think about the country first, and think about who the most competent and effective people can be.
Yes.
Yeah, put your country first and then look at who are the most competent people to be leading political discussions and discourses and put them forward and support them to do so. But the problem is, like potentially everywhere else in the world, is that effective and good talent cannot find its way into the top. Okay, it's always stymied. That's why we have, Tariq Rahman sitting here, twiddling his thumb, not being able to sort of, provide an effective, because it's a kind of a political royal family, isn't it? No one can seek to sort of replace him, or he won't allow other people to replace him. So that's the problem. And when other people that surround him, they're all people who are core supporters, okay, and their continued power base will be eroded if they don't support the current sort of leadership that's there. So there's no fresh people coming in. So contrast that against the United Kingdom's arrangements. You've got 90 people in the Tory party that are going to resign this time around, MPs who will not stand again. 60 from the Labour Party, current standing MPs who will not stand again, right? So from both parties, you'll have new people coming in. So the next generation of politicians will be completely different.
Thank you. Very good advice for both parties. They need new people. Older policymakers are not working, I can tell by your face. Thank you. Very good advice. Mr. Latifur Ali, we have only a few minutes left, like 2-3 minutes. You can talk about education, politics, and culture for your conclusion. Like, you can conclude by saying how you like our program and then say something to your audience, please.
Well, I mean, other than sharing thoughts about how people should actively get involved in politics, as we have been talking about politics. So politics is not just about getting into frontline politics. So whoever you are, the listeners, if you're interested in better healthcare, better education, better housing, better environment, if you're want to ensure that people the situation that's taking place in Gaza right now. If you care about those things, you have to get involved in policy making. You have to get involved in politics. Doesn't matter. You can be a businessman, you can be an educationalist, you can be whatever you are, but be interested in your society, in your community. Get involved in one way or another and try to influence in the best way that you can. Ultimately, it comes down to politicians, and you have to ultimately be involved in somehow influencing those politicians. I happen to try and do that through policy making. I'm not a very good frontline. I don't think frontline politics suits me, so I stay in the background and try and advise and guide and support the best way I can. So this is what I would sort of urge, that people should not say, I'm not interested in politics. Look what politicians are doing. They're absolutely horrible. Unless you get involved, you can't change them. You can't influence them. You can't change the direction.
আজকে অনেকক্ষণ কথা বললাম, so many এরিয়াতে, education, culture and politics. You spoke very well about BNP Aওয়ামী লীগ. The new leadership is demanded there. So with that note, আমি আজকের অনুষ্ঠান এখানে শেষ করছি। আপনাকে আজকের অনুষ্ঠানে অনেকক্ষণ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ ফ্রম আলাপন মিলেনিয়াম টিভির অনুষ্ঠান থেকে, এবং ডক্টর হাসনাতকেও ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি আমাদেরকে আপনাকে অতিথি করার জন্য। With that note again, আজকের মতো এখানে শেষ করছি। দর্শক, আগামী শনিবার দিন আবার দেখা হবে। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।
Assalamu alaikum.